Whoa. The season starts in less than a week. We have breaking news. Dylan Cease is finally traded to the San Diego Padres, a special FT Live as we bring in FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal. Ken, the shock factor for you that Dylan is ending up with the Padres, and what else do you know about this deal?
I would say surprising, Scott. I would not say shocking based on what I reported last night and what seemed to be building here. What I heard yesterday from multiple people was that the Padres were looking hard. I'm sorry, the White Sox were looking hard at the Padres system. And when you hear that, you know that a team is looking at something serious. And we also had heard and reported that the Rangers were in. But my understanding is that the Padres came in late and just trumped whatever the Rangers were prepared to do. So the package that they gave up, headed by Drew Thorpe, who of course was the centerpiece of the Juan Soto trade, it is, from what I can see, a fairly steep package, but it's 2 years of Dylan Cease, and that was the whole key here the whole time. And I give credit to the White Sox because they played this really well. They waited the entire offseason until they got what they wanted, and they played on teams' desperation, and they played on the knowledge that come spring training, teams would look at their rosters and say, not good enough. And Dylan Cease is not Blake Snell. He's not Jordan Montgomery. Dylan Cease is making $8 million this year, and he's got club control, or the club has control over him for another year. So it's an affordable guy for a team like the Padres, who are under financial limitations right now, and it gives them a rotation that suddenly looks really formidable. It's Darvish, it's Musgrove, it's Dylan Cease, it's Michael King, and probably Johnny Brito or Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer, one of those two. But that's a formidable group. Now, does it get him past the Dodgers? Does it get him into the playoffs? I don't know. But this is classic A.J. Preller. Strike late, strike at a surprising time, and strike big.
I'm so floored by this. It's breaking news. How soon did you know about this? Because you reported it yesterday. Like, did you start hearing things over the last week? Is this just been a last 2 days thing?
Last couple of days. And I didn't hear the Padres till yesterday. So obviously at that point, the way I wrote the story today was that the Rangers were probably, in my mind, the front runner from what I was hearing. And that's how I wrote it, but I did include the Padres. So what seemed to occur is that over the last few days, momentum built for this. And the White Sox had suitors. They had the Yankees too at some level. And when you have that, and when you decide, you know what, this guy's having a tremendous spring, let's not take the chance. And this was the one thing I thought they should do all along, not take the chance of carrying him into the season, risking him getting injured, or even performing poorly. But he was brilliant again last night, 8 strikeouts in 3 1/3 innings against the Reds. He has been brilliant all spring. The Padres people have been watching him closely, and they decided, okay, we'll give up the package. We'll give up the key guy we got for Soto because we're getting 2 years of a pitcher who in 2022 was the runner-up for the American League Cy Young Award.
Ken, and we were following your story about the Texas Rangers involvement and the potential return that could pop up on their end. I know you wrote about Ezekiel Duran, Brock Porter, and Jack Leiter. In my mind, first glance, that looks like a better return, but maybe I'm wrong, and we'll talk to JJ Cooper from Baseball America later. But what do you know about the return for the White Sox? And it looks like this is more of a quantity over quality return. Obviously, there's quality there, but you're getting 4 players here, right?
4 players instead of the 3 that I reported. Now, keep in mind, what I reported was the deal that the Rangers were thinking about was in the range of Ezekiel Duran, Jack Leiter, and Brock Porter. Might not have been that, but it was in that general vicinity. So not necessarily those names specifically, maybe 1 or 2 of them, maybe, I don't know what it was, but that was the idea. Clearly, the White Sox preferred what they're getting from the Padres, and I'm not the expert on prospects that JJ is, so I would advise you to talk to him about this. But Drew Thorpe was certainly a big guy. He's a top 100 prospect, and he's someone that is a big-time guy. And the other 2 prospects in the deal, again, I don't know as much about, but they were highly rated in the Padres system, which for as many trades as they make, here's what's amazing. They make all these trades, and yet they still find more players. And that's the beauty of A.J. Preller in many ways. his ability to identify and procure and develop young talent might be unmatched in the game, as is his willingness to trade that young talent for pieces that he wants. And again, I don't know where the Padres are going with all this exactly, but at the same time, one thing we cannot ever fault AJ Preller for is trying. He always is trying. Whether he succeeds or not, we've had debates about. But this is an effort to give his rotation that much more power going into the season.
Okay, we'll bring in AJ Pierzynski. I'll ask you one more, and then AJ will get involved here too. Obviously, a big deal for the White Sox. But my question on the Padres side, Ken, is how much do you think this has to do with them capitalizing still on a window when they're paying significant money to players like Yu Darvish and Manny Machado? And I think Peter Seidler would want the team to be competing and trying to be a playoff team. You know, if he were still here, obviously the late Peter Seidler is very missed in San Diego. You have that coupled with the fact that AJ Preller has underperformed, I think is fair to say, in terms of his tenure and how much leeway he's gotten with his payroll. Do you think someone like him looks at this and says, listen, I can get a player that costs $8 million, less than $10 million, who could be a Cy Young candidate in the National League and could help us get to the playoffs? Otherwise, I might not have a job next year.
I don't know that he's thinking quite like that. This is totally in character for him. It's the kind of deal he's made all along. Remember the Kimbrel trade that was on opening day years ago? So not a surprise. They're about to go to Korea tomorrow, and he's making a trade today. So from that perspective, as I said, in character. But Scott, you make a great point. This is the kind of deal that under the late owner Peter Seidler, they became known for. And Peter Seidler was totally down with AJ Preller making these kinds of moves. Now, is AJ Preller trying to save his job? I think that every GM, even the ones under fire, are always trying to do the best thing they can for their organization at any given time. So is he under pressure? Yes, he's under pressure. His benefactor, Peter Seidler, is no longer with us. And that's a different dynamic right now without him there. But at the same time, AJ Preller probably would have made this trade in 2016, 17, 18, 19, all the way through. It's just the kind of thing that he does. And what's interesting to me is, Scott, you're right. Their window is not forever. Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts eventually are going to get into their 30s, right? They're going to be older players, not in their primes like they are now. So, yeah, they've got to try to win, at least in this particular window. They still have Ha-Seong Kim for one more year. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Jackson Merrill, the great prospect, has been a revelation in center field. Scouts are raving about him. They're probably going to go with him a little quicker than other teams would. But this is the way AJ Preller operates, again, for better and for worse at times.
Will this move facilitate a Monty or Blake Snell signing? Because now teams are like, oh, there's nothing left.
I don't know, Eric, because Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery have been out there all winter. And they have been available, ready to sign, and yet nothing's happened. Obviously, teams feel the price is still too high or not where they want it to be. So the fact that it's the Padres getting Cease, all the same suitors are still in play for Snell and Montgomery, you would think. And I would expect that that is not going to have any effect. This trade is not going to have any effect on that at all. The Yankees situation is obviously problematic right now. We haven't even mentioned this. Garrett Cole is going to be out for a considerable length of time. And will that push the Yankees to get Snell or Montgomery? Would it have pushed them harder on Cease? Well, evidently they didn't try hard enough on Cease, right? So I don't know if the dynamic gets altered at all with those guys. It's still the same staring match we've been looking at all off season.
Wait, AJ, I don't think we hear you, dude.
This is the way I prefer AJ. I love it.
Oh, wow. This is actually glorious for Ken.
It's
AJ,
so
you got to
good.
type me what
That
you want
made
me to
Ken's
ask him. You
night.
get last licks. Hey, AJ, type it real quick. And you get last licks. Last question for Ken here. And just for you to know, Ken, AJ, ironically, is in which city right now? I'll let you guess.
Chicago.
Hey, is this better?
Hey,
Yeah,
there he
better
is.
not
There he
be.
is. Yep, we got you, dude. Tell him where
All
you
right.
are.
All right. I got two questions for you, Ken, before I let you go. One, I watched Thorpe pitch yesterday. and he was 88 to 89. Like, I hope the radar gun was wrong, because that's not a typical top 100 prospect. And then second of all, from the White Sox end, who the heck's going to pitch for him? Is Thorpe going to bounce right into their starting rotation? Or, I mean, I know Wilson is a reliever, but are any of these guys going to be on the White Sox big league team? Because who's going to pitch for him? Kopech, Fetty, and Thorpe?
Well, I reported last night, AJ, that they were interested in Michael Lorenzen. And I don't know if that deal is going to happen or not, but it seems that it would be more likely to happen now and maybe necessary to happen. If not Lorenzen, a trade for someone else, maybe both those things. Because, yes, you're right. Their rotation is sharply compromised, obviously, and they're going to need to address that in some fashion.
AJ, you good?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
He didn't answer my question about Thorpe only throwing 88, though.
That's not a question. It was a statement. Ask a question.
Well, no, I was hoping it was wrong. I asked you if the radar gun was wrong.
I don't know. I did not hear that today, AJ. Is that something that I was aware of? And certainly you want better velocity if you're getting a guy like that. I don't know that that's his normal velocity. I don't expect that it is. But I don't know. I have not heard that. Put it that way.
Okay. They sent me to San Diego, Ken, to be on the ground. And by the way, the Padres are leaving right now for Korea. So they're actually on the plane. They're heading to the plane right now. So they'll be there. I mean, it takes 2 days to get there. So they'll be there, whatever, in 2 days. And Cease is not joining them, from what I'm hearing.
Well, yeah, well, we're already seeing conflicting reports there too, Ken, on if he's going or not, which, as you can imagine, we've had our plane issues this offseason with reporting.
Well, I would imagine, guys, if I'm not mistaken, it's Darvish and Musgrove they're going to pitch. So Dylan Cease doesn't need to go. He probably would be better served just getting his things together and settling and trying to find a place in San Diego than flying all the way to Korea for games that he's not going to pitch in. That would be my guess.
Ken, thanks for jumping on. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, AJ, you take over first. I don't know how you did it, dude. You went to San Diego for this trade. Dude, you are the only one that was 3 days ahead of this trade.
He's been sitting in the water too, like this the whole time, just waiting and watching.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I sent you guys my reaction already. I'm floored by what the Padres are doing, because first of all, what are they doing? Are they competing? Are they not competing? I know they were supposed to lower their payroll. They traded Soto away. They didn't bring back Snell. Geez, I don't know what they're doing. And then from the White Sox side, like, hopefully these dudes are pretty good, because, I heard Ken say, Chris Getz waited and waited for the right move, and he thinks it's the right move. Well, I hope it was the right move, and I hope this leads to the White Sox competing for years. Because like you said, they would still have 2 more years of Dylan Cease. If they would have waited till the trade deadline, and maybe an Orioles or maybe a Yankees gets desperate to make that move, you can get something else. But, hey, Chris Getz struck when he thought the iron was hot, and I hope it works out. But this is more confusing to me for the Padres, because I just don't know what they're doing. Are they trying to win? Are they trying to lose? Are they in between? What are they doing? I don't know. And they're in the Dodgers division. They're in the Diamondbacks division. It's confusing on that end.
I think it's also exciting, though, Kratz, for San Diego fans. I think this is a huge jolt. I mean, the Padres have been a very lucrative business over the last few years. They spent a ton on player payroll. They were relevant, even though they underperformed based on what you saw on their roster, especially last year, not even making the playoffs. But if I'm a Padres fan, I'm looking at my season coming up in less than a week and thinking, it's probably going to be a mid-season. And now I'm like, okay, my top 3 is kind of legit. If I can sneak into a wild card spot, we could fuck around and win a World Series.
Let's see what JJ has to say about how much this screwed up the White Sox roster. And more tickets to be sold in San Diego. They're going to keep packing it out there.
They do. It's a vibe out there. All right, so let's get to JJ Cooper from Baseball America right now to break down this trade. JJ, thanks for joining us last minute as this all shocks the system late at night here with less than a week to go until the Dodgers and Padres play ball for real in Korea. Your reaction to this trade, and obviously we want to get a good breakdown. We've all been waiting for the prospect return and how you would grade it.
I got to start by saying I'm impressed. AJ was so smart that he was scouting ahead of time, seeing Drew Thorpe, thumbing it, yesterday. So I will say
Seriously,
Thorpe
no,
is
seriously,
norm.
I want to hear the answer to that, JJ, because
So yeah, so
I was
Thorpe,
sitting here.
he's normally 91, 92. He's not lighting up the radar gun, but he's not 88, 89 normally. Now it's spring training. Guys go through dead arm. You were there. I wasn't there yesterday. So I didn't have a report on what he was sitting yesterday. But if he's not normally, he averaged 92 miles an hour last year with his fastball. And he is a changeup guy, right? Like if he can get that, if he's sitting there 91, 92, touching a three, he'll touch a four at the upper end. That's setting up the changeup. That's setting up really kind of a 4-5 pitch mix. He's more of that guy who really knows how to pitch off of that change. And he is a guy who's just going to blow you away. But he's really good. I mean, he's a top 100 prospect. He's got a chance. I shouldn't say really good because pitching prospects can break your heart, but he is a guy who isn't that far away from stepping into, I would think, the White Sox rotation. And to kind of answer your question, Scott, I look at this package that the White Sox got back, and obviously it does not help them for 2024, but I do think it's a pretty solid package, a pretty good package to get back to help them for 25 and beyond if they are kind of admitting that 24 is not going to be their year.
Who's the marquee guy? Who's the marquee guy in this package that we have to look at? Because that's the person who's always going to be compared to the other people that were supposedly in when that stuff starts to come out later on this week.
Thorpe's a top 100 prospect for us, but he's also a top 100 prospect for pretty much everyone else too. I would say, I don't know if he's consensus is in every top 100 out there, but he's pretty close to that. I would also say with that Zavala and Iriarte are not that far off of the top 100. Those are a couple of guys who they're not on it because they're a little further away than a Drew Thorpe. Drew Thorpe's a guy who you expect to have plenty of innings in the big leagues in 2024. He's closer to the majors. I would say that Zavala and Iriarte have a little bit more ultimate upside if everything clicks. There's just a lot more risk there. Zavala is a very interesting, very young outfielder, kind of the exact type of prospect that A.J. Preller and the Padres covet acquiring, and I think maybe even more so covet than trading before he ever reaches the majors for the Padres. They're basically someone who brings them in and then they ship them out. And Zavala is the kind of perfect prospect like that, of a guy who could really have 5 average or better tools if it all comes together. Had a really good year in low A last year, was not as good after he got promoted to high A. And then you throw Iriarte. Iriarte is a guy who, now, if Drew Thorpe is kind of, you're seeing, if you see 88, 89 out of Iriarte's hand, it's off speed, because you will see high 90s from him. It's a really good arm. Class A last year, flashes of brilliance, flashes of frustration, got to Double A at the end of the year. Is one of those guys who, if you bet on him becoming a reliever, you're probably not wrong, because a lot of pitchers of this ilk end up as relievers, but sometimes they end up being more than that. It's funny. I just got into Phoenix, hitting the backfields for the first time today, and I was in Sloan at the Cubs Park, and I just couldn't help but think about it. That was where I was interviewing Dylan Cease many years ago, and I would say that his profile at the time wasn't dramatically different than what Jairo Iriarte's is. The difference is Cease was coming off of Tommy John surgery. Iriarte is healthy.
JJ, let's do some comps here. So we have a question from Soy Milk Assassin, very classy, interesting name there from the profile, but asking if this means the Yankees overpaid for Juan Soto. Usually top-end pitching commands more than top-end position players in the trade market in general. Soto is for 1 year, Cease is for 2. So I'm going to get 2 comps from you. One is, when you look at this trade versus what the Yankees gave up for Juan Soto, what are your thoughts? And I'll add one more for you, because we just had Ken on. Ken was reporting about potential of a deal that could look like Ezekiel Duran, Brock Porter, and Jack Leiter for Dylan Cease. I really liked that deal for both sides. And for me, I think that would have been a better trade for the White Sox. So what do you think about comparing those 3 in terms of the prospects?
Okay, so let's do the Rangers one first because I was listening to you guys, and I was interested in that too. I think the names are more well known in that Rangers proposal. Jack Leiter's much bigger name than Drew Thorpe. He was one of the best pitchers in college baseball for multiple years. Yeah, all that. As a prospect right now, Drew Thorpe is a better pitching prospect than Jack Leiter. Jack Leiter has probably a little bit higher ceiling if everything comes together, but Jack Leiter is a guy who it hasn't come together for so far in the minors, had multiple trips to the developmental list last year, has had trouble with his control and trouble with kind of command in the zone where he gives up a little bit, gets a little homer happy, has some walks at times. Porter is also a very interesting young pitching prospect, but I would say that the Duran component's a little harder to compare because obviously that's a guy who has already had some big league success, at least a little bit, where that's a little, and also would give, that's my concern for the Padres here is just, they really are going to just steering into that stars and scrubs. Now, if we pull it back and look at that Yankees trade, I mean, that was a massive deal. The thing that kind of jumps out with that makes it hard to compare is Thorpe was one of the guys in that, but it was also Michael King, and it was, the Padres backup catcher, Kyle Higashioka, who I always mispronounce his name. Sorry, Kyle. And, there was other guys in it as well, where it's a little harder to compare that like for like because it's a very different trade. And I think the key thing you also said there, Scott, 2 years of Dylan Cease. This is the guy who the Padres can now look at and say, this guy is going to hopefully be a rotation anchor for this year and next year, which is a big difference of 1 year.
JJ, was there a package out there better than this? Like, could the Orioles have offered a better package? Should Chris Guess have waited to see? I know there's a chance that Dylan Cease gets injured, but was there a better package, or was this about as good of a package as he could have got? I know we just compared him to the Rangers, but we also heard, the Yankees were back involved because of Cole's possible injury. So was there a better package out there, or was this the right time for Chris Guess to strike?
I think it might have been the right time to strike just from the standpoint of they were very patient on this, right? Like, obviously, they don't have to trade him, but they did wait, and they waited long enough, it seems like, to kind of shake some things loose. I think there's some risk for the Padres here on this. I really like Dylan Cease. Obviously, we saw a couple years ago at his best, he's just a dominant frontline starter, and that's a great thing for the Padres to acquire. But there is also the chance that between Steven Wilson's a reliever. Okay, he's useful. I'm not saying he's not. But between Thorpe, between Iriarte, between Zavala, if one of these guys pops, then this could be a trade that we look back a couple of years ago from now and say, hey, the White Sox did really good here. Well, to answer your question, if the Orioles were interested, if the Orioles down the road would be interested, the Orioles could trump anyone's trade right now. They have the best farm system in baseball, and the thing they can do, but it's kind of hard to even argue that because the Padres could have trumped this trade if they felt the need to, because this is the one thing I will say for this, though. Chicago got a nice package. They got a top 100 prospect. They got numerous players. However, they didn't get the cream of the Padres farm system in this. The Padres were able to hold on to the guys who you would expect them to want to hold on to in this, and that kind of stands out here as well.
JJ, thank you so much for jumping on here. Yeah, shocker for everyone, and you got to love the trades when they're so close to the season starting. Look for much more coverage on Baseball America. You can follow JJ, of course. We'll post some of these clips, and JJ, we'll catch you soon, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate you. That's JJ Cooper. Okay, AJ, I know you're in San Diego, so you're a genius, but also White Sox fans just want to get your take before we put this to a close, and I'll give you something to think about. Why Wilson for their bullpen? Like, you're not competing this year. It's total tank city. If it's me, I even would take like a low-level A-ball prospect, like something else, because by the time the White Sox are good again, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's one where I'm like, so? Like, if you're going to lose 95, lose 100.
No, I took the over on their number. So no, that's not what we're doing, Scott, okay?
Fine.
Yeah, the Wilson one is. But listen, he's got a few. I think he has 3 years of control, 3 or 4 years left of control, Wilson. So he can be there for a long haul. Again, I think Chris gets weighted and weighted. And I think this is the best probably prospect capital he could get back. Again, I'm a little concerned because I watched Drew Thorpe pitch yesterday on the television, and it was 88, 87, 88, 89, and I was like, oh man, didn't know who Drew Thorpe was, and I saw he got traded. And I was like, dang, that's the guy with the mustache that was a short arm. I'm like, is that Lucas Giolito they just got? Because that's JJ said he tops out 92, 93 with a good changeup. Well, that seems like Lucas Giolito to me, who they just let walk in, or they traded away last year. So I don't know. I hope this works out for the White Sox end. I hope the prospects are good. And I hope this is the best deal Chris could have gotten. And listen, congratulations to Dylan Cease, because he goes from a team that's probably going to lose to 100 games to a team that's now right in the middle of it. And also, one more thing I want to add. If I'm Dylan Cease, I want to go to Korea, because heck, when's the next time he's going to get to go to Korea on someone else's dime, dude? Jump in there. You can get to meet your new teammates in another country. You get to eat some different food, see some different places. I'd be like, yeah, Padres, fly me and my significant other out to Korea so I get to see it. And let's go.
Yeah, wear some jet lag. My question is, are the Giants going to make a move now? That was kind of what I was hinting at what, I asked Ken, are the Giants going to make a move for one of those two guys? Because I'm not saying they're right on their heels. Padres lineup underperformed. If they perform up to where you think they should, Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Jake Cronenworth has to bump up his OPS this year. There is, and I'm missing guys, Ha-Seong Kim. Like, there's a lot of guys there that can hit. I just, does it make the Giants say, whoa, we're easily going to lock up second place in this division? Relax, Padres.
You see that Jackson Merrill homer yesterday? I know it's spring training, but
you love some Jackson Merrill.
He's heading to Korea. I mean, I know we talked about him moving to the outfield, but still, like their lineup should be pretty good, right? And now you look at their starting rotation, and Waldron's been shoving for them in spring training. Again, he's got a good arm. Like, that's their five. Musgrove and Darvish are pitching out there. Cease, upside-wise, is a Cy Young contender, right? That was 2 years ago, not 5 years ago. And he's not 38 years old. That's the rotation that we're looking at right now. What?
Better defense behind him, too.
Way better defense. The White Sox defense was awful last year. And if you like the metrics, it's like -8, I think, the outs above average for him. So Machado, Ha-Seong Kim, etc. behind you instead. Tatis. I mean, you have some elite defenders behind you. Dylan Cease's stock went way up. Better ballpark to pitch in. I know the Padres Park's not as easy as it used to be, but it's still a better park to pitch in than if you're with the Chicago White Sox. And AJ, I mean, the NL West is better than the AL Central, but still, this is a huge win. Dylan Cease gets to pitch for a contender, and he's going to be in the mix, in the news a lot more. Like, this helps him individually. So final thought before we jump here, but I think the Padres are suddenly kind of a wild card contender in a National League in general that wasn't that aggressive. Like, one team might come out of the NL Central. The Cubs have been kind of chilling in their 7th inning stretch of their offseason. They were not that aggressive so far. The Giants had a nice offseason, but I don't think they're dominant. The Braves and Phillies are out there in the NL East. Would you be shocked if I said, hey, the Padres snuck in as the third wildcard team?
No, not at all.
Okay. Let's end on that note.
Wait, Scotty, we just made $500. Because we put 100 down in the show today on the White Sox having the worst record in baseball. They were coming out at +500. Now it's going way down, and we got it at +500. Sorry, you went on vacation.
They're still better than
Diego,
Oakland,
man.
They're still better than Oakland. They're still better than Oakland.
It'll be a race.
Still better than Oakland.
It's close. It's close. Hey, we'll do this on FT Live. We'll talk more on Thursday. Todd Father will be with us, bunch of guests. So we'll break it down at 11 a.m. Eastern time every single weekday up until the regular season starts. We'll do Padres, Dodgers post-game shows next week after those early-ass games that begin, 5, 6 a.m. Eastern time in America. Thanks for watching this breaking news little edition of FT. We will see you on Thursday.